inside a hospital room where it was supposed to be final. The ward was silent except for the slow beeping of a machine and the muffled sobs of a family gathered around a bed. On that bed lay a young woman. Her chest did not rise. Her lips had turned pale. To everyone standing there, she was gone. But she was not gone. Not completely. Her spirit hovered above the bed, watching the tears of her mother fall upon her still hand. She reached out, trying to wipe her mother's tears, but her fingers passed straight through. She screamed, "Mama, I am here. I am not gone. Please, look at me." No one heard. She turned to her father, who knelt in prayer, his voice breaking as he begged heaven to return his daughter. She knelt beside him, holding his shoulders, but he did not feel her touch. She was in between. The world of the living no longer held her, and the underworld had not yet claimed her. Fear gripped her. She tried, again and again, to slide back into her body. She pressed against it as if it were a locked door. But every time she tried, she was thrown back. The flesh she once called hers had become a shell, sealed and closed. She wept. Days passed, though she could not tell if it was day or night. She wandered the halls of the hospital, unseen, unheard, forgotten. Nurses walked past her. Her relatives left with swollen eyes. And soon, even her body began to look colder, emptier. The truth pressed against her heart. She was trapped. One night, when the moon was high, she found herself drifting away from the hospital. She did not know how. Her spirit simply followed a pull, like an invisible hand guiding her. She moved through streets, past buildings, until the city's lights dimmed and the air grew heavy with mist. At last she reached the river. The water glowed faintly under the moonlight, restless and alive. She stood at the bank, shivering though she had no body to feel cold. Something called to her from the depths. A voice, not human, not earthly, rose from the rippling surface. And then she saw it. A figure rising slowly from the water. Her breath caught. Her fear deepened. It was half woman, half fish, shimmering under the silver light. Her hair flowed like waves, her eyes burned with ancient knowing, and her voice carried the sound of both water and wind. The spirit woman froze where she stood. The mermaid smiled faintly, tilting her head. "Why do you wander, restless one? Why do you weep for flesh that no longer belongs to you?" The woman's knees buckled. Her voice shook. "Because I was not ready. My life was not finished. I do not want to go yet. I want to live again." The mermaid's eyes glowed brighter, and the river rippled with her laughter. "Life is never free. If I give you what you seek, will you return it when the time is done?" The woman hesitated, desperate, trembling. She did not ask what time meant, nor what return truly required. She only thought of her family, her unfinished dreams, and the sweet air of the living. With tears burning her eyes, she nodded. "Yes, I swear it. Just let me live again." The mermaid stretched out her hand, her scales catching the moonlight. And that was the moment everything began. The woman's spirit stood trembling before the river being. The night seemed to hold its breath as the mermaid's hand stretched forward, glistening like silver under the moon. The woman hesitated. Her heart whispered fear, but her desperation screamed louder. Slowly, she placed her trembling hand into the mermaid's palm. At once, the river stirred. The waters rose in waves that did not touch her, yet wrapped around her spirit like a cloak. She felt herself sinking deeper and deeper, though her feet never moved. The world around her disappeared, until only darkness and the mermaid's glowing eyes remained. The voice of the water filled her ears. 3 moons. Only 3. I will give you flesh again, but when the moons are gone, you must return it. What is borrowed is never owned. Break this, and you will pay a price you cannot bear. The woman's lips quivered. I understand. The mermaid smiled faintly, though it was not a smile of kindness. It was the kind of smile rivers where when they know secrets you will never understand. And then it happened. The woman gasped as warmth rushed through her. Her fingers, which had been thin like mist, thickened with blood and flesh. She looked down and saw skin covering her bones, a chest rising with breath, a heart pounding in rhythm. She had a body again. A body alive, strong, and radiant. When she opened her eyes, she was back on the hospital bed. Nurses screamed. Her mother dropped her prayer book in shock. Her father fell to the floor, his mouth wide open in disbelief. "Doctor? Doctor?" Voices rang out. The woman sat up, chest heaving. She touched her face and felt tears, warm and wet. For the first time in weeks, she was alive. The hospital erupted in noise, but inside her mind only one whisper remained, like water trickling against stone. 3 moons. Do not forget. The family rejoiced, hugging her, praising God, calling her survival a miracle. But only she knew. Only she heard the voice that followed her, soft but unyielding. And as she smiled through their tears of joy, her own heart trembled with the weight of what she had just agreed to. Her second life had begun. But it came with a shadow. The woman's return spread like fire through her family. Some called it a miracle, others a blessing. Neighbors rushed in to see her, whispering that gods had heard her parents' prayers. She smiled at them, nodding, but deep in her heart she knew the truth. Her flesh was no longer hers. It was borrowed. When she first stood from the bed, she almost stumbled. Her legs felt strange, too strong, too perfect. The mirror on the hospital wall startled her. The face looking back was hers, yet different. The scars she once carried were gone. Her skin glowed like polished bronze, her eyes sharper, her lips fuller. The mermaid had not only given her back a body, she had given her a body that was flawless. As days passed, she noticed how people looked at her. Strangers stared longer. Nurses whispered about her beauty. Even old friends who once overlooked her now spoke with awe. At first she felt joy. She laughed louder, ate with appetite, and walked with confidence she had never known before. Each morning, she felt the sun kiss her skin, and each night, she breathed deeply, afraid of nothing. But the whisper never left her. 3 moons. Sometimes it came in dreams, sometimes in the hush of silence. She would hear it behind her laughter, beneath the praises people gave. 3 moons. Still, she buried the thought, telling herself there was time. She had been given another chance, and she would use it well. She visited friends she had not seen in years. She danced at gatherings as if she had never known sickness. She sat with her family, soaking in their love. And then something unexpected happened. Love came knocking. A man she once knew distantly began to notice her. His eyes lingered when she passed. His voice softened when he spoke to her. Soon, he walked her home, brought her gifts, and looked at her as if she was the only person alive. Her heart, which had once known only the cold silence of the hospital, now burned with warmth. She told herself she would not waste a second of this new life. But each night, as she closed her eyes, the river stirred in her dreams. She saw scales flash under the moon, eyes watching her from the depths. And a voice, calm yet heavy, always whispered, "What is borrowed must be returned." The woman shivered, pulling the covers tighter. She promised herself she would think about it later. Not now. Not when life had become so sweet. Viviana walked the earth as though it had been given back to her as a gift. Every morning, when the sun poured through her window, she stretched her arms wide, breathing in deeply. The air felt richer, the colors brighter, and even the smallest things, the flutter of a bird's wing, the laughter of children on the street, brought her joy she had never noticed before. Her parents treated her like fragile glass, unable to believe they had not lost her forever. They cooked her favorite meals, sang her childhood songs, and clung to her every smile. To them, she was a miracle, proof that prayers had power. But Viviana knew better. Still, she did not dwell on the truth. She chose to drown herself in life instead. She visited places she had once dreamed of but never dared to go. She sat in gardens, soaking up the scent of flowers. She danced when music played, spinning in circles until her laughter filled the air. And everywhere she went, eyes followed her. Her beauty was no longer ordinary. It carried something otherworldly. Some whispered it was the glow of survival, others said it was heaven's gift. Viviana only smiled, though in her heart she remembered the mermaid's scales glistening in the moonlight. Then came a knock on the door of her heart. It was Anthony, a man she had known distantly before her sickness. He had always been kind, but now his kindness burned with something more. He brought her flowers, walked with her in the evenings, and told her stories that made her laugh until her ribs ached. Viviana felt warmth bloom within her. She had thought death had ended her chance at love, but here it was, arriving like morning light after a storm. She told herself she deserved it, that after all she had endured, happiness was her right. Yet, in the quiet of the night, when Anthony had gone and her parents had fallen asleep, she heard it again. The whisper. One moon gone, two remain. Viviana froze, staring at the ceiling. She pressed her hands over her ears, but the voice was not in the air, it was in her very soul. She turned over, clutching her pillow. Not now, she whispered as if the mermaid could hear her. Please, not now. Let me have this. But the river never sleeps. And the waters never forget. Viviana closed her eyes, pushing the fear away. She would think about it tomorrow. Tonight, she would dream of Anthony's smile. The first moon had come and gone. Viviana tried to live as if nothing was waiting at the end of her borrowed days. But time is a patient hunter. One night, after a joyful evening walk with Anthony, Viviana felt a strange pull as she neared her home. Her chest tightened, and her feet refused to carry her through the door. Instead, they turned her toward the river. The air was heavy, the night too quiet. Even the crickets seemed to hush as she walked. The water shimmered under the full moon, restless and alive, as if it had been expecting her. And then the surface broke. The mermaid rose, glistening, her hair spilling like dark silk, her eyes fixed on Viviana. Her beauty was terrible, the kind of beauty that made the heart tremble, because it was not of this world. Viviana's knees weakened. She stepped back, but the voice came, soft, yet carrying the weight of the entire river. One moon is gone. Viviana swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. I know. Two remain. The mermaid's eyes narrowed. When the time is done, you will return what you swore to return. Viviana's lips trembled. I will. But inside her heart, fear battled with desire. She thought of Anthony, of her parents, of the warmth of food and laughter, of the music of the streets. Could she really let all that go again? The mermaid tilted her head, as though reading her thoughts. Her voice grew sharper, slicing through the night. Do not forget, Viviana. Flesh is borrowed, not owned. The waters are generous, but they are never mocked. The river rippled violently, spraying mist onto her face. Then, in an instant, the mermaid sank back beneath the surface, leaving only the sound of rushing waves. Viviana stood frozen, her heart pounding. She wrapped her arms around herself and whispered, I will return when the time comes. But as she turned back toward the road, tears burned her eyes. She knew she was lying, to the mermaid, to the river, and most of all, to herself. Because deep inside, she had already decided, she would not return. After that night at the river, Viviana returned home shaking. She shut the door, drew the curtains, and pressed her back against the wall. Her breath came in quick gasps as if the river had followed her into the room. But morning came, and with it, sunlight. The fear of the night faded, replaced by the sweetness of living. Her mother's laughter in the kitchen, Anthony's cheerful voice calling at the gate, the simple joy of walking down the street with people greeting her, it was all too warm, too alive. And slowly, Viviana began to bury the memory of the mermaid's warning. She told herself, 3 moons is a long time. Why should I waste my days worrying about tomorrow? Let me live today. Let me live fully. Each day, she found new ways to silence the voice in her soul. She filled her hours with outings, conversations, and Anthony's companionship. She avoided the river, never once walking near its bank again. When dreams of the mermaid came, she forced herself awake, whispering, "No, it is not real. This life is mine now." And soon, her deception grew bolder. In her heart, she began to reshape the truth. What if this body was not borrowed? What if it was meant for me all along? Maybe the mermaid only tested me, and now I have passed. Maybe this body is mine forever. She clung to that lie like a lifeline. The more she told herself this, the stronger she believed it. She walked with pride, laughed louder, and held Anthony's hand with a grip that said she never intended to let go. But the river does not forget. Sometimes, while washing her face, she caught her reflection ripple strangely in the water bowl, as though another face was hidden beneath her own. Sometimes, while walking in the market, the sound of rushing water roared in her ears though no one else heard it. Viviana shook her head each time, forcing a smile. "No. I will not return. This body is mine now. Mine." But in the deep of her spirit, the truth lingered like a shadow. What is borrowed can never be owned. And the owner always comes back. The second moon rose and fell, bright and then broken. For Viviana, the days in between were filled with joy and denial. She laughed with Anthony, shared meals with her parents, and walked proudly through the streets as if she had been born anew. But as the second moon began to wane, the river stirred. It was late at night. Viviana lay in bed, half dreaming, when a familiar chill slid through the room. The sound of rushing water filled her ears though there was no river near her window. Her heart froze. And then she heard it. The voice. 2 moons gone, 1 remains. Her eyes snapped open. At the foot of her bed, the mermaid stood. Not in water, not in mist, but in her room, her scales glinting faintly in the moonlight. Viviana gasped, clutching her blanket. "No, no, not here. Leave me." The mermaid's eyes narrowed, her voice now sharp as broken glass. "You think you can run from the river? You think you can hide from the waters that flow even in your blood? Foolish child. I came to warn you, time is almost done." Viviana shook her head violently. "I will not go. Do you hear me? I will not return. I love this life, I belong here now." The mermaid's face darkened. Her hair fell forward like curtains of black water as she leaned closer. "You do not belong here. Flesh is borrowed, not owned. You swore by the river. And the river is never mocked." The room trembled with the weight of her words. The jug of water by the bedside cracked, spilling across the floor. Viviana pressed herself against the wall, her teeth chattering. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Just let me stay. I will give you anything but this body." The mermaid hissed, her voice like waves crashing on stone. "You bargain with what is not yours. 1 moon remains, Viviana. And if you refuse to return, then the waters will take you by force." In an instant she vanished, leaving only the sound of dripping water on the floor. Viviana collapsed onto the bed, her body shaking, her pillow soaked with tears. But even through her fear, her heart whispered the same stubborn truth. I will not return. I cannot. And far away, the river roared, restless and angry. The last moon drew closer, and with it, Viviana's fear deepened. Days felt shorter, nights felt longer, and even in the brightest moments, she carried a shadow that no one else could see. Anthony noticed her restlessness. You don't sleep anymore, he said one evening, touching her trembling hand. What are you hiding from me? Viviana forced a smile, masking her terror. It's nothing, just dreams. But she knew they weren't dreams. The mermaid had begun the hunt. It started with small things. The mirror in her room no longer showed her reflection clearly, her face blurred, her hair dripping wet, eyes too dark to be her own. She would blink, and the image would return, but her chest would remain heavy with dread. Then came the water. When she filled a glass to drink, ripples formed on the surface, though her hand was steady. A voice whispered from the ripples, "Return what is mine." The glass would slip from her fingers, shattering, leaving her staring at the spill that looked too much like blood. By the fourth night, she was afraid of her own shadow. Walking through Anthony's garden, she caught sight of the fountain. Instead of her face, she saw the mermaid's, eyes wide, teeth bared in a smile that was not kind. Viviana screamed and stumbled back. Anthony rushed to her, holding her shoulders. Viviana, what is happening to you? You're scaring me. But how could she explain? How could she tell him that the body he kissed, the body he held close, was not hers? That her time among the living was stolen, and the owner of her flesh was coming to reclaim it? That night, unable to sleep, she lit a candle and sat on the floor, whispering desperate prayers she barely remembered. The flame flickered, though there was no breeze. Then, suddenly, the candle went out. In the darkness, she heard water dripping, though the room was dry. Then, in the silence, came the mermaid's voice, clearer and colder than ever. You cannot run from what flows through you. Soon, Viviana. Very soon. Viviana pressed her hands against her ears, tears streaming down her cheeks. No, I won't give it back, I won't. But deep inside she knew the river spirit was closer than ever. And when the third moon rose, there would be no more warnings. Only the taking. The third moon arrived. The night air was unusually heavy, as though the whole earth was holding its breath. Viviana felt it in her bones. The agreement was over. Anthony had invited her to a small dinner with his friends, but she excused herself early. Her hands shook as she gripped the steering wheel of her car, driving aimlessly through the lonely road that cut across the town's outskirts. She told herself she just needed space, but deep inside, she knew she was running. Then it happened. As she approached a bend, she saw her. A woman standing in the middle of the road, hair glistening like wet silk, skin pale under the moonlight, wearing a long flowing dress that seemed made of water itself. Viviana's heart nearly stopped. It was her, the mermaid in human form. She slammed the brakes, tires screeching, the car jerking to a halt just inches away from the figure. The woman did not move. Instead, she tilted her head, smiling faintly, like a predator amused by its prey. Viviana locked the doors, her chest heaving. Not now. But then, through the windshield, she saw the mermaid's lips move. No sound came out, yet Viviana heard the words inside her head. 3 moons have passed. Give me what is mine. Viviana shook her head violently. No. This is my life now. You gave it to me. The mermaid's smile widened, sharp as broken glass. A gift with an end is not theft. But you have stolen. You cling to what is not yours. And thieves are punished. The engine of Viviana's car sputtered and died. She twisted the key desperately, but the car would not start. Panic surged through her veins. She reached for her phone, but the screen flickered, drenched in a strange watery glow before going black. The mermaid began to walk toward the car, each step making the ground damp, leaving trails of wet footprints on the dry road. Viviana screamed, locked eyes with her, and in that instant, she saw it. Her own body, lifeless on a hospital bed, tubes around it, the doctors walking away in sorrow. That was who she had been. That was what she had run from. "No!" she shouted, covering her face. "I will not go back. I won't." The mermaid reached the car and placed one hand on the hood. Water spread across the metal, sizzling, as though the car itself was drowning. "Then I will drag you myself," the mermaid whispered, her voice echoing in Viviana's mind like 1,000 waves crashing. Viviana threw the door open and ran into the night, barefoot, her breath sharp and ragged. The lonely road stretched endlessly before her, but she didn't stop. Behind her, she heard the soft, steady footsteps of the mermaid, never hurried, never strained. Because the sea always finds its own. Viviana's feet pounded against the earth, cuts and bruises forming as she stumbled through the lonely road. The night was alive with her terror, crickets silenced, the wind howling like a warning. Her lungs burned, but the footsteps behind her never stopped. The mermaid was still walking, slow and calm, as though she knew Viviana could never escape. "Please!" Viviana cried into the darkness. "Please, just let me stay. I'll do anything." Her voice echoed into emptiness. No answer. Only the steady steps that seemed to grow louder with each breath she took. Suddenly, she saw headlights in the distance, another car approaching. Hope flared inside her chest. She waved her arms desperately, screaming, "Help me! Please help!" The car slowed down. For a moment, relief washed over her. But as the vehicle drew closer, its lights flickered strangely, bending like ripples on water. Then, before her eyes, the car dissolved into mist, an illusion. Viviana collapsed to her knees, trembling. "No, no, this can't be happening." The mermaid finally stopped behind her. Viviana felt the cold presence settle like ice on her back. Slowly, she turned her head. The mermaid's eyes glowed like the ocean under moonlight. Her voice was no longer calm. It was thunder, rage, and sorrow woven into one. "You borrowed what was never yours. You tasted life, but life belongs to those chosen by fate. Now return." Viviana shook her head violently, tears streaking down her face. "No. I love it here. I found happiness. I found love. Her words cut short as the mermaid touched her forehead with a single finger. Instantly, Viviana's body stiffened. Her vision blurred, and she saw two worlds at once, her borrowed body trembling on the lonely road, and her real body lying lifeless in the hospital bed. She screamed, clinging desperately to the borrowed shell. But the mermaid's power was unyielding. Like waves reclaiming a grain of sand, Viviana's spirit was pulled from the body she had stolen. Her last sight of Earth was Anthony's face, smiling at her in memory. Then everything dissolved into water and silence. The mermaid whispered one final word, "Mine." And with that, the road was empty again. The car, the footprints, even the faint cries, all vanished, leaving only the whisper of the night wind. No one ever found Viviana's body. But on quiet nights, when the moon is full and the roads are lonely, some travelers swear they see a young woman waving frantically for help, before vanishing in a shimmer of water. Because the sea always takes back its own. Moral lessons. What is borrowed must be returned, for greed turns blessings into curses.